Adam Jones, the guitar player for Tool, would always come and see our band. Adam was a special effects guy. He worked at Stan Winston, so one of his friends said, oh, you got to see this weird costume band.
I used to help the Green Jello people in the day, you know, they had these costumes.
Oh, yeah, little pig, let me in.
That's Maynard.
Oh, is it?
Not by the hair of mine.
Really?
That's Maynard.
I didn't know that, yeah.
So Adam started coming around, and me and him had become friends, and we started hanging out. And Adam and Maynard were friends. And I had this big gigantic loft that we all lived in Hollywood, and Maynard just needed a place to live. He just moved into town, and I was like, yeah, sure, you know, come on over here.
Green Jello guys had a space next door to where I was living, and Maynard kind of moved in, and Adam was friends with them and all this, so we just met the neighborhood we lived in.
At some point, you know, Maynard and I were talking about, let's start a band. It'd be fun just to, you know, mess around. We had some other friends, and then Maynard just slipped me this tape. And he goes, yeah, here, check this out. You know, it's just something I was doing back in Michigan. And I was like, okay. And it was a band he was in. And I put it on and my hair stood up on my arms. And I was like, oh, you can sing. Maynard, you can sing. Through Green Jello, Maynard, they moved into this big space. And it was by where Danny Carey lived. And
I kind of had a little warehouse thing where we could rehearse.
we kept asking Danny to jam with us. And at that time, Dan was in he was in a couple TV bands, which are bands that they'll be filming a sitcom, and the TV band will play between the shots to keep the the audience warmed up. Yeah, it's cool. Maynard are calling me. He goes, hey, the drummer from Autograph is going to jam with us, and we were really excited. So we were jamming at Danny's studio, and that's where the Green Jello people would play, and Danny let us jam there. And the guy blew us off.
Oh.
Yeah, he didn't show up.
The drummer was always flaking out on him. I finally felt sorry for him.
We had been asking Dan to jam with us, and he was like, no, I don't have time. So they were like, Dan, come on, this guy blew us off. Just walk in the next room. He's like, all right, I'll do this one time, you know? And he jammed with us, and then he was like, hey, we should do this again, you know?
When I hadn't played with him one night, I was like, holy shit, this is really good, man. So I'm stuck with it, you know?
We used to have our own parties at our studio. And, you know, one day Maynard was just tired of working at the pet store. And he said, you know what, let me make up a band for the party, and maybe I'll get signed to this $300,000 record deal.
And then we found Paul Demore. He was a friend of mine. He was like a really good guitar player, but he said he was just totally sick of playing guitar. He wanted to just play bass. We're like, okay, let's jam, because we need a bass player. So our band kind of started out like this, just for fun, just this therapy, fun band.
Most everyone were just like, okay, go fuck up your life, just go join a rock band. What are you thinking?
What could be the worst thing that could happen? You could go and try to do it, and if it didn't work out, you've got this as a career to fall back on. But you have to take the opportunity or the moment. You have to try it. You have to try it.
And so that's how it started. And then there was some point where we got signed as a band, and we laughed. We laughed so hard when we got our first record offer.
Throw that Bob Marley wannabe motherfucker out of here.
That record offer was by Zoo Entertainment, a record label founded in the early 90s. Finally, in March 1992, Tool released their debut EP, Opiate.
Nobody likes to be put in a pigeonhole of sorts, But I guess we are kind of metal, kind of grunge, we're kind of riding that grunge wave.
Uriah Heep / Grateful Dead vibe. A little bit of Steve Martin banjo music slipped in there. Well, generally we write, music. The music comes first, and then the ideas come afterwards. And the reason ideas come afterwards is because the music ends up kind of tapping into something way down deep inside that hasn't been addressed yet or needs to be addressed.
We play the music that we feel like playing. That's pretty much where we stand. That's why we do it.
Tool recorded their first full-length album with the help of female producer Sylvia Massey, who had also worked with Green Jelly. Undertow was released in April 1993.
People start latching on to the personalities involved rather than listening to the music and the artwork that's being presented, you know? I mean, like the Mona Lisa, you look at the Mona Lisa and you absorb the Mona Lisa. You don't really worry about where the artist is living and, you know, what he looks like and how he drinks his coffee and who cares, you know? How he cuts his hair. It's not important. What's important is the image that he's produced.
Now, you recorded Undertow with a female producer, Sylvia Massey, which I found very interesting. I was wondering, did she add a different perspective to what you were doing in any way?
This is a very good engineer, an engineer that does her job well, and she's just very good. And we work well as a group. She has a lot of input. She's better than any engineer that we met with.
There are some certain things you have to give up with a festival. One is you're playing in the daytime, which is always something you have to deal with. And the other thing is that you're sharing stages with other bands. Do you take that into consideration? Does it affect your music at all?
No, this tour I think is probably the easiest tour you could possibly do, really. You know, I don't think it affects us at all.
Although we're really well organized,
yeah,
there's no problem.
Pretty together.
And as a group, were you all of you wanting to play this tour? Do Lollapalooza?
Oh yeah, definitely.
It is an honor, isn't it, to be chosen out of all those bands?
Well, I suppose.
I was wondering, why do you feel an affinity with Henry Rollins?
We did a little bit of touring with him, but the main reason he appeared on the album is because we had a gambling debt that he owed us, so we took it out in time on vinyl.
Is that the truth?
Sure.
Because I was wondering if he has a very strong message as well about making the most of yourself and stuff like that. I wondered if you felt an affinity to that side of things.
Well, that's initially how we ended up getting to tour with him, with similar attitudes, but what actually happened was we were at a place called the Anaconda in Santa Barbara and doing some, poker, and he kept bluffing on bad hands, and we of course kept calling him, and he got into about $3,000 in debt with us, and rather than having him sign over an IOU, we had him go ahead and just sing on the record.
Tom helped me out a lot with, talking about the business.
Because he was already signed at that point.
He was signed. He was in this band called Lockup, and he was like the best thing in the band. He's just amazing guitar player. And then he moved on to, Rage. And so Tool and Rage kind of came up at the same time. And then, Green Jello and other bands that we knew, we kind of learned from their mistakes on what they did. And the one thing we learned was, if we took less money, we got more control. And the people signing us thought that was great. Why sign this band for no money? But, they can't make a move without us.
Right.
We have that artistic freedom.
In 1995, bassist Paul D'Amour left the band.
He was just never happy, so he was kind of that missing piece. And he quit. I was blown away, and, God bless him. What he wants to do. And, I respect him for that. I respect anyone who turns down the money and to be happy.
I know you joined the band in 1995.
That's correct.
So initially you were playing in a band called Peach, touring with Tool at this point.
Well, not quite touring, but we did a few shows.
Oh, okay. That's the connection originally, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was more of a favor than
okay.
than an earned spot.
Many of you may have noticed this individual here is a new person. This is Justin Chancellor. He's a new bass player. He's from England. He's been playing a band called Peach.
Okay, so 1995, Paul Damore exits Tool.
Yep.
And then, so what happens from there?
I got told that there was a call at my flat. You got to call the guys from Tool back. And at this point, they'd been really courteous to us as friends. We'd done a couple of shows supporting them in London. You know, when they did their London shows, they asked Peach to support them. I called them back, quite nervous. You know, I'm like, what do they want? You know, I think it was Maynard, but they were like, "We'd like you to come out and audition to be in the band." You know, and it was a little too much really to absorb and take in. And I think right on that first call, I basically immediately just said, "Oh, I can't do that. You know," out of total fear. You know, just intimidation. So anyway, I said, I said, thanks very much. It's really nice of you, but I don't think so. You know, way too busy here. My brother said, "Look, this is crazy, man. You got to do this. You got to try it. Like, you're not even." He's like, "What does it matter? You know, even if you fail, like, what a great thing to be asked to do, and you have to go and try it." So I didn't in any way feel musically on a level with them, you know.
That entails moving to a new country too. So
absolutely,
no small step.
Not a small step at all. So I had the you know, difficult thing of basically calling them back and saying, "Would it be all right if I changed my mind?" You know, and come out, which everybody will tell you is not something that would normally work. You know, they were really cool and they said yes. So that, you know, that's pretty much how I ended up coming out. Yeah.
Anima was released in September of 1996. The band enlisted the help of producer David Bottrill, who had produced King Crimson, Peter Gabriel, and David Sylvian, among others.
I wrote the riff for 46 and 2 in that period.
Oh, wow.
And I ended up bringing that with me. And that was one of the first things that me and Adam wrote together once I joined.
When they called, it was like, you know, they sent me their Undertow. And I thought, well, I've never really done anything quite like this. And they probably have me confused with somebody else. So I didn't really pursue it. They called back a week later and said, no, we know who you are. We want you to do this. And it turns out they'd heard the passion. They'd heard some of the world music stuff I'd done. Maynard particularly, he loved that stuff. The King Crimson things that I had done, Danny loved. And the David Sylvian, Robert Fripp, Adam, it was his favorite record that year. So they wanted a guy to come in that wasn't like a standard Los Angeles metal producer. They wanted their record to sound different to everybody else's. And because I had never done anything like that before, I guess it did. You know, it was, but no less powerful, I don't think. It was just unique, and it didn't sound like an LA metal record of that time period.
We're at the Melody Bar in New Brunswick, New Jersey, a great punk, alternative, and dance club. I DJ'd at for over 10 years, still going strong. Right now, I'm proud to say we got the 120 debut of the new video from Tool for Anima, title track from that album.
Adam, the Tool videos are phenomenal as well. Where's the inspiration come from? Because they're just so detailed. How long does it take you?
Like 2 or 3 months. From beginning to end. Like planning, developing, mold making, armature making, you know, getting a film package, getting someplace to shoot, you know, planning out what we're going to do, shooting it, getting it telecined, getting it edited, getting it sent out. Yeah.
Well, you've been together for 17 years. What keeps driving you all?
Compromise.
Yeah, each other, I guess. You know.
Splitting everything 4 ways.
Enema was dedicated to Bill Hicks, a stand-up comedy artist and close friend of the band who passed away in 1994. Tool sampled a Hicks routine in their song Third Eye.
Fucking high on drugs.
If you know anything about Tool, you know not only do they not appear in their videos, they don't like press interviews that much, and they rarely ever go on TV, if never.
We've never done performances on television or like live radio performances.
Can you explain us the concept behind it that you do not get filmed?
Well, we'd rather the people come see us live and experience us live with, two eyes instead of looking at something that's, mono, and I don't know. It's never been a good experience for us. And we're control freaks, and we really like to make sure it's presented in the right way.
Our music isn't necessarily something that you just put on and tap your foot to. It's definitely more of an interactive process. So right away, the entire fan base that we've developed over the last 10 years, it's been those kind of people and kind of spread out from there. So we set the precedent initially. It wasn't about jumping up and down to some catchy phrase. It was about connecting with the music, listening, and respecting these people as artists and listening with an artist's ears. So, I would say the majority of our crowd they're artists in their own way. So they have respect for what we do. They're very forgiving. They listen with their hearts rather than just show up like cattle.
Tool's last full-length studio album came out 5 years ago, went to number 2 in the Billboard charts and also sold 2 million copies. So when 5 years have passed and you've had that kind of success, everyone knows what Maynard was doing with A Perfect Circle. What were the other 3 members of Tool up to? You toured for about 2 years, then had 3 years off doing what?
Fighting with the record company.
2 legal battles began that interfered with the band working on a new release and also dismissed their longtime manager, Ted Gardner. Maynard James Keenan joins a new side project with Billy Howerdale, Tool's guitar tech and Maynard's roommate, creating A Perfect Circle.
I needed a short break. I started working with my roommate Billy Howerdale on A Perfect Circle, and that took off way more than we thought it was going to take off. So you kind of have to give it its due. So we just kind of use that as our break, and that was only for like 9 months or a year. So the only actual break that we took was when I was off with Perfect Circle.
I think he had a lot of creative energy that he needed to expand, and they were, at the time, legally prevented from or prohibited from doing or releasing any recordings.
Was there any sense of like possessiveness on the part of the boys from Tool when you were going out there, like a worry that you weren't going to come back?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. They won't admit it, but yeah, definitely. There's a paranoia.
Along with Maynard doing his Perfect Circle thing, we had a lot of other business things going on at the same time that were kind of a drag, and we had to grow a lot as individuals and grow together, keep our relationship strong just to survive, keep our community together, we're tight within ourselves. So it's kind of hard to separate like that event from all the other things that were going on at the same time. We still felt like a band through the whole thing.
We get so involved in these lawsuits and record company stuff that you forget, why you're here. And so when we get back into the room and just start playing music, you go, oh yeah, that's what I was doing here. That's why, that's what we do.
A lot of people at the time said, oh, this is the harbinger of the end of Tool and everything. Well, we found that's not true. You have to remember that they had gone through an extraordinarily stressful time in between those 2 records.
It was kind of hard to keep being creative, yeah, it kind of grated a bit. And we had to kind of get through that a little bit before we could really get back to, the creative process.
In May of 2001, Tool continued working with producer David Bottrill and recorded Lateralis. This album became a worldwide success, reaching #1 in the US Billboard 200 albums chart in its debut week.
There's a lot of anticipation, as you would expect, to their new album coming out. How do you pronounce the title of this new LP? How do you say it? Lateralis, is that right?
Lateralis.
Lateralis, right,
Yeah.
okay, so that's how it's pronounced.
They were just better at doing the things that they were working on. I think their writing was a little bit more exploratory. I think they were, again, pushing the boundaries of where they could go in the style that they were working on. I think it was kind of the pinnacle of where they were going along that path.
The songs, the way we write them, they get to a certain point and then they sort of just take on a life of their own, and we just try to be true to that and let them develop the way they need to develop. You know, there's never too much forethought put into each one individually. You know, we're in a fortunate position where we can let things run their course and we don't have to worry about, you know, selling, you know, singles or anything like that. We're an album band.
Everybody pretty much has been writing commercials for the last few years, and it's understandable. There hasn't been a lot happening in the last 4 or 5 years that these kind of no talent people kind of showed up, filled in the spaces pretty much. So hopefully the public isn't so far gone.
We're hoping to scoop in as many new people as we can and hope they'll embrace it, but you never know what's going to happen until it gets out there and we get the response.
And people are still interested because it is promising to be different, you know, and that's what we've been trying to do while creating it.
There's a large percentage of people that are still really frustrated by how disposable a lot of art and music has become, and they're really hungry for something they can sink their teeth into again, but I think a lot of time those people, because they're somewhat maybe of a minority, that their voice isn't heard, and a lot of time they aren't stupid enough just to go out and blab all over in the places where they would be heard, that I know the response has been incredible for our band, just the anticipation of this record, it's enough to let us know that we're still doing the right thing, staying true to ourselves. I think it'll work out fine.
The concept behind the artwork of Lateralis was developed by Adam Jones and the visionary artist Alex Gray, who illustrate the different anatomy layers of the human body. Adam and Alex meet in 1999, and no one would have known that this was the beginning of a new creative relationship that would last till today. Alex started to work with the band during that period and was involved in future album covers and video clips.
Well, in the Lateralis album, really Adam and I was early on in our relationship, but we had met, I think, in '99. Adam started talking about the concept of the multi-layered acetate thing. And it was something that I had always wanted to explore and do as a, because of anatomy layers. I had only gotten some lyrics from Maynard as far as the content of what the album was going to be. And I didn't hear any of the actual music, until the record was released. And then I had no idea at all what would happen. That both Tool, grabbed that as a symbol, and then it immediately became tattoos all over the world.
The album became a worldwide success, and Tool received their second Grammy Award for Best Metal Performance in 2001 for the song Schism. Ending their tour in November 2002 seems to be a signal for the start of another hiatus of the band. Maynard starts recording and touring with A Perfect Circle. Meanwhile, Danny, Justin, and Adam start to work on new material with the help of producer Joe Barresi. 10,000 Days was released in May 2006, selling 564,000 copies in its first week.
How was it for you after 5 years of making a new record now? Was it a difficult record to make?
Always.
Yeah? In what way?
Because we're older and more grumpy.
I think 10,000 Days is a gain of growth. It's a step in a direction, and there's great songwriting on there. There's great singing. Maynard's voice is sounding better than ever. I think it's a great growth. I think it's another step along the way of their creativity as a band.
To me, it was like really high tech and kind of garage at the same time, and I really like that, you know.
Yeah, we've just over the years of making records, we've learned something, every time. So it's great. That adds to the high tech part. I mean, we get more and more sophisticated in the recording techniques. We pretty much have our way we do things, and we just get better at it. It's since the first Opiate EP or whatever, we've pretty much done the same thing, and that's just be true to our chemistry in the room, and it'll be true to us.
Something we're really into is just to try to tap into people's subconscious. You break things down to the most basic ideas or elements, just to a sound or a shape or a color or a vibration, and then build it back up. That base thing gets the subconscious, and you get the subconscious of someone who knows nothing about it, so they kind of relate to that feeling of what we were going through when we were writing.
We have a comfortable working relationship, the whole band does. It's why we're able to create the music we do. It's a pleasure, I always look forward to working on stuff after we've been out touring. It's great to write new music, but when we're out, or when we're in there writing it and working on it, then I always look forward to getting out and trying it out live on people. It's kind of grass is always greener scenario.
10,000 Days receives a Grammy Award for Best Recording Package. The album includes stereoscopic lenses to view the album art in 3D and was developed by the artist Alex Gray.
In the 10,000 Days album, we went back and forth a little bit. He had the idea of the stereoptoscope and the 3D. Then I said, well, why don't I just show you what I'm working on right now in the studio? And that was the Net of Being painting. We both imagined seeing it in 3D and stuff like that. And so he said, that's it, got to use that somehow.
Alex's art really kind of like, we're like, oh man, because he explores that, what's different about everyone, what's the same about everyone, what are the different spiritualities, what are the different, that's to me what sacred geometry is, it's what are those things in nature are harmonious, and why are they harmonious, and what do we have in common.
What can we expect of the new videos? Because you also always have the coolest animated videos. Can we expect more of that?
More of that.
Yeah?
More genius videos will definitely be down the pipe.
Cool.
We got good guys helping us. We have a team that's been with us for a long time, so they work well together. We got Alex Grace helping us out. This genius shaman, painter, visionary. So that always helps.
In the Vicarious video, that was, I think, the most intense collaboration. Probably, except for working with my wife, probably the most intense collaboration I've ever done with any artist.
Something we've always kind of played with were ideas of like sacred geometry and taking major ideas or taking stuff that's like harmonious in the world, actions between people or the conscious collective or just, different thinking or physical traits or repeating patterns in nature, and try to simplify those ideas down to the simplest shapes, colors, sounds, vibrations, and then build it back up. So it's basically based on that, and again, it's what we do, the four of us do as a band.
How do you know a song is finished?
You don't. You can keep going forever on them. It's a matter of acceptance, really. You just accept yourself for being as lame as you are at this point in time. Okay, I can live with this. Otherwise, you would never finish a record. So you're just gonna have to live with it the way it is and get on with it.
It is about repetition. The more you start going over these pieces and over these pieces, there's things that feel right about them and feel wrong about them, and the wrong spots will correct. And before we actually go into the recording process, we've actually played these songs so many times and had so much repetition with it that we know them inside and out. So you can eliminate a lot of those problem areas before you get to the recording situation.
It seems like you've been a bit more straightforward with your lyrics than you usually are. What's the reason for this?
I don't know. I think the lyrics Maynard writes are pretty consistent on all the things. I think they can be interpreted on a lot of different levels, so you have to kind of be open to that aspect of it. But I don't know. To me, I think Maynard dug in a little deeper even this time, you know. But he writes all the lyrics, you know. We don't tell him what to sing. So he doesn't tell us what to play. So that's kind of his department more, and they're there to reinforce the music. The music always comes first, you know.
After finishing the 10,000 Days tour and taking some time off in 2008, the members of the band started to work on other creative projects and dedicated time to their families. Tool continued doing live shows, but less and less frequently. Finally, after 13 years of not releasing new material, the band entered the studio in March 2019.
You guys broke some records releasing them all at once. A number of tracks at the top of the charts, and then I think, Fear Inoculum was the first song over 10 minutes to hit the Billboard Hot 100. I think the Hot 100.
I mean, it's been really exciting, and
it's probably interesting because all the counters get set to 0. You release all your music. I don't know if it's interesting to you to see what songs actually.
Well, yeah, I know Lateralis, the album, is still in the iTunes album charts in the top 20. It's been there for 3 weeks, which is really blowing my mind. It's exciting. You know, we just played a tour. We went to Europe and we played a bunch of festivals. We headlined them and did our own shows as well. And doing our own shows in Europe, like after 10 or 11 years or something, they're doubled or tripled in size without us actually having released anything. And this was before we released all our catalogue. So it's just a very fortunate moment, really, for everything to collide in this way. And I think, you know, you can feel the impetus with like the relief of finishing our new album, and like it's just all it's sort of like a perfect storm, I guess you would call it.
Up to this point, Tool never wanted to be available on streaming services. But with the arrival of Fear Inoculum, released in August 2019, it was a necessary step to take. Finally, Tool decided to release their entire catalog on digital platforms, becoming #1 on the US Billboard 200 charts, displacing pop artist Taylor Swift.
We have this new thing called digital media and streaming. We're going to try it out.
So not only do you guys have a new album, but you also have sort of rebirthed all your songs into the world. After being resistant for a while, are you guys content with being in the streaming world now?
I mean, it's pretty epic. The last couple of weeks have been incredible. But we really put a lot of effort into this release. Bob Ludwig up in Portland, Maine, he also remastered all the old records for the digital format.
Catalog goes up on all digital and streaming.
He's doing this. So up until this time, you never have had anything up and available.
No.
With the format thing, I mean, obviously we had to take it into consideration because we were kind of this dinosaur leftover thing that was. We signed a 5-record deal that was based around CDs back when we signed it, and now it got to this point, you know, to accomplish the finality of the releasing this record, we had to negotiate the whole digital domain.
So why have you guys not had anything on streaming up until this moment?
I can't. I love my brothers. I'm just going to take the fifth on that one.
I can't even imagine how he comes up with what he does, because what a nightmare, you know? What a nightmare to walk into. And he absolutely just like blew my mind every time on every song on this album. He just did something, you know, amazing and unexpected and transcendental, you know, and just elevated the whole, you know, what we were doing. We thought was like already quite fantastic. Made it incredible.
doing vocals was, basically 6 days because he was pretty well prepared. 6 days of wine drinking and olive picking and cutting vocals. It was awesome, actually. It was a good break. Maynard's vocals are always like the treat, like the icing on the cake to me. And it kind of made sense. Like, I didn't really hear a ton of vocals on the first round of demos I got. And then when I heard what he was doing, it all made sense to me. On this album, the drummer, Danny Carey, and I, we talked about, because he integrated a rototom into his drum kit. And so I started going back and listening to all his influences. Bill Bruford and Billy Cobham and a lot of the Spectrums and Alphonse Mouzon and so many incredible records that we listened to. Emerson, Lake and Palmer. So a lot of that prog influence actually prompted the idea of maybe cutting in a second drum kit. So on that song, at the 3/4 point, it goes to his drum kit when I was like, let's bring in another kit and do the second half of the song with another drum kit, thinking it might be a smaller kit. But he actually brought in his kit when he was 15 years old, which was a 12-piece Ludwig stainless steel kit with 10 toms, all like mounted in pairs on like a single stand back then, and they were all concert toms. So I actually remember the drum tech and I working for hours getting these basically paint cans to sound like cannons. The studio we were at also used to bake us these chocolate chip cookies all the time. So it was an extra little special treat. I put on a few pounds as well. And Danny called his drum solo on the album Chocolate Chip Trip, based on the fact that all we did was eat chocolate chip cookies. The solo itself was pretty awesome. He always does like a synthesizer thing and he gets behind the drum kit and plays to it. And Dan would actually start working on the synthesizer and get that going, and then he'd get behind his normal drum kit and play to the synth. And then he'd get up and run across the room and play on the second kit. So it was actually quite funny to see.
The entire Chocolate Chip Trip is in sevens, like going beyond into the world of seven and then taking it as far as I can. But it is my ode to Billy Cobham because I love that guy. He took me to a better place, and that's it.
When we were tracking, we always like to set up the room so it's visual. Dan's got like some geometry thing behind him, and there's always a PA and candles, and it's very vibey. I remember the drum tech, Bruce Jacoby, was in front of the console, and I saw this look of panic in his face, and I was like, what is going on? And all of a sudden, he just bolts out of the control room through this back door, and he gets behind Danny's drum kit, where I guess Dan was playing with such power that one of the candles fell over on his floor tom and started burning the floor tom. So the head of the floor tom went on fire, and there's sprinklers in the ceiling. So we were trying to get the fire out before, the sprinklers went off, and then the whole recording would be ruined. So that was one of the most insane moments, actually.
There's a song called Tempest where I do a 4.5-minute solo in. Really a crazy song to write because it's 3 rounds of 7. It's 21. Wow. It's a riff in 21. And you gotta remember our drummer, who's the best drummer in the world. And I tell people that, like when I was a kid, Rush, I used to be like, best drummer, Neil Peart.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Best drummer in the world. Now I go, I'm in a band with the best drummer in the world. We were recording, and we had a few drummers come in, John from System and a couple others, and they all kind of said the same thing at some point. We play the track and they go, is that just one drumming? Like one, is that takes or like tracks level, like multi tracks? And they go, no, that's just Danny playing. And they go, oh my God, he's just an alien. I mean, he's the only guy I know can just, do like 3 different polyrhythm beats at the same time, foot, hand, other hand, and I always tell a story when Justin and I bring the riffs in when we jam, and Danny will just start playing the most opposite polyrhythm kind of thing to it, to the point where I'll forget how to play the riff I wrote. And I have to go, Danny, please play simpler.
Quit overplaying.
Yeah, no. But that's the magic of Tool,
Sure.
you know, it's just kind of. But anyway, the song I was talking about is, you know, it's in 21.
What's it called again?
Tempest.
Tempest, yeah.
Yeah. And Maynard spelled it with a 7 because we have like all this 7 kind of weird stuff happening with the record, and just thought it was important. I just hope people like it.
Wow. Kind of renews my faith in humankind to know there's long attention spans left out there that can listen to a 12-minute song. My bandmates, Justin, Adam, and Maynard, who I couldn't do anything without. They're my crutches.
I'd like to thank everybody that works for us and helps us do what we do, makes it easy along the way. See you in another 12 years.